What you're about to hear will finally explain every strange attack and every moment you felt watched without knowing why. Chosen one, your aura didn't just rise, it crossed the boundary of the physical world and reached the halls of heaven itself. When your light appeared in the higher realms, a council gathered, and your spiritual imprint was placed before the throne where destinies are measured. And the moment heaven observed the truth of who you are, something broke in the unseen world. Lucifer screamed, not out of power, but out of raw desperation, because when your aura was weighed, there was nothing he could use against you. No accusation, no flaw, nothing he could twist. The enemy of your soul lost his only weapon, and when the accuser runs out of arguments, the battlefield shifts entirely in your favor. That's why the pressure increased. That's why you felt targeted. It wasn't weakness, it was recognition. You were placed in a classification reserved only for those who walk with direct divine protection. Stay with me and subscribe with notifications on, because what I'm about to reveal next has been hidden from people like you on purpose. I'll show you the exact moment the spiritual snapshot of your aura was taken, why heaven chose that phase of your life, and what status you received that makes dark forces retreat the moment they sense you. And if you've ever felt observed by forces you couldn't explain, type 777 in the comments. You're not imagining the attention. Your aura was examined in realms where protection is assigned, and heaven made its decision about you. Before we go any further, you need to grasp what it truly means when I say your aura reached heaven. People hear something like that and assume it's metaphor or poetic exaggeration. But what happened to you was exact, literal, and part of an ancient spiritual process that has existed long before humanity even understood the idea of divine judgment. There is a tribunal in the higher realms, not the final judgment of all souls at the end of time, but a continual council where individual cases are reviewed, where spiritual forces present information that determines who receives protection, who receives blessing, and who is tested. This system is hinted at in old scripture, but never explained openly. Celestial beings assemble before God, and the adversary arrives as the accuser. It's not symbolic, it's protocol. And during these sessions, evidence is brought forward, not arguments or clever speeches, because words can be twisted. What is presented is the spiritual equivalent of a photo, a direct imprint of a soul's essence, captured in a specific moment that cannot lie, cannot pretend, and cannot hide. Your aura created that imprint, your face, your eyes, your natural expression. These things are not random combinations of genetics. They are the visible surface of your inner world. When that imprint is placed before the tribunal, it reveals who you are in ways words never could. Around 3 months to a year ago, depending on the exact timing of the event I'm describing, something shifted around you. You may not have realized it, but your case was brought to the tribunal in an atmosphere of tension. And it wasn't because you committed some great wrong. It was because someone, some entity or force, threatened by your rising light, accused you of being deceptively pure, claiming that your goodness was strategy, not truth. They insisted your integrity was performance, that you needed to be pushed until you cracked. To settle that accusation, the tribunal needed evidence that could not be manipulated. So your aura was captured in a moment when you were unguarded, when you were not performing for anyone, when your face settled naturally into its honest shape. That imprint was taken to the highest court of heaven. It wasn't sent through intermediaries. It was placed before God directly so that your essence could be read in full clarity. When God examined your aura, he wasn't looking at the surface. He was reading the depths of who you have become. The first thing he saw was in your eyes, not their physical color or shape, but the inner fire your gaze carries. Ancient texts refer to the eyes as the place where the soul shows its true direction. Your eyes revealed something unbelievably rare, innocence preserved through experience. There is the innocence of someone who has never been tested, and then there is purity that remains after facing betrayal, pain, disappointment, and darkness. The first kind is untouched. The second kind is earned. What God saw in your aura was the second kind. He saw that you faced things that could have left you bitter or cold, and somehow your inner light stayed intact. He saw that life tried to harden you, but you refused to let darkness set the tone for your spirit. That alone shook the tribunal. The next thing he observed was your natural expression, the way your face settles when you are not being watched. Most people carry marks of their wounds, tightness from bitterness, heaviness from sadness, tension from relentless defenses. These signs show up even when they try to hide them. But your aura imprint showed none of those marks. Instead, your expression reflected a peace that makes no logical sense based on what you've lived through. It revealed forgiveness, real forgiveness, not the kind spoken out loud to appear noble, but the kind that clears space in the heart. It showed that you refuse to let the damage inflicted on you become the structure you live inside of. That serenity, so rare, so impossible to fake, stood out in the tribunal like a bright flame in a dark room. Then came the most decisive observation: the seal hidden within your aura. The higher realms recognize a spiritual mark carried only by those who genuinely belong to the light. It's not something you earn through temple routines or memorized verses. It appears through the way you live, the way you choose compassion over cruelty, the way you stay kind even when people fail you. Your aura carried that seal clearly. It wasn't dim or uncertain. It shone. It declared allegiance without you needing to say a word. And when that seal became visible, the atmosphere in the tribunal shifted instantly. Everyone present understood the implications. The accusation brought against you collapsed. Your purity wasn't performance. It was truth. You weren't pretending. You were exactly who you appeared to be. Someone who carries light even after walking through shadow. When God finished reading your aura, there was a silence so deep it felt like creation itself was holding its breath. That silence meant one thing: the verdict was unavoidable. And then God broke it. He didn't speak softly or ceremonially. He delivered a declaration that shook every realm at once. His decision was final. He claimed you publicly. He marked you as tested and approved. He stamped you as one who carries divine protection in full measure. And he warned that anyone who dares to harm you or interfere with your path is positioning themselves against heaven directly. The moment that verdict was spoken, the enemy reacted in the only way left to him. Lucifer screamed. Not because he won, but because he lost. He lost the right to accuse you. He lost the ability to challenge your essence. He lost the case entirely. And your aura, the very light within you, became untouchable in the spiritual world. This is why your attacks increased. This is why you felt watched. This is why you sensed pressure in ways you couldn't explain. You weren't being destroyed. You were being identified. Your aura crossed dimensions and reached heaven, and the accuser couldn't stand it. His scream was his defeat. And your protection began the moment that verdict was spoken. To understand why Lucifer's scream changed everything around you, you first need to realize what that reaction meant in the spiritual hierarchy. Lucifer doesn't lose his composure. He doesn't lash out. He doesn't respond emotionally even when his plans collapse. He measures, calculates, and adapts. He's been the strategist of darkness for ages, always watching for weaknesses to exploit and waiting for the moment a soul slips. That's why his scream mattered so much. When the divine verdict about your aura was announced, when he saw that the light in you was so authentic that even he couldn't invent a counter-argument, something inside his strategy snapped. He had invested enormous effort into trying to twist your essence. He arranged specific trials meant to corrupt the very qualities your spiritual imprint revealed. Every one of those attacks was designed with precision, targeted at breaking the purity that showed up so clearly in your aura, and every single attempt failed. You stayed aligned with the light. You stayed true to yourself. You stayed uncorrupted. When heaven confirmed that truth publicly in front of the celestial tribunal, Lucifer was forced to face what he never expected. he lost the entire campaign for your soul. His scream wasn't pain, it was fury. Fury of someone who poured resources into a mission that went nowhere. Fury of someone who realized he wasn't just losing influence over you, he had already lost, completely and permanently. Fury of someone who knew that from this point on, touching you would be treated as an offense against a divinely protected chosen. And here's where the weight of that scream begins to show up in your everyday life. A public admittance of defeat from the enemy of your soul establishes something ancient texts describe as spiritual immunity. But in your case, it's more than immunity. It's declared untouchability. Not because you're flawless, but because your inner alignment is so strong that darkness can't attach itself to you no matter how much force is used. That immunity creates 3 direct, practical consequences that are already unfolding. The first consequence is automatic reversal of spiritual attacks. Everything sent to harm you, every curse, every attempt to block your progress, every form of hostility designed to stall your path is returning to its sender with multiplied force. You don't need to retaliate. You don't need to fight. The verdict heaven issued about your aura activated a shield that sends dark energy back the moment it approaches you. The second consequence is the sudden increase in synchronicities surrounding your life. Those perfectly timed messages that show up when you need clarity, those people who appear out of nowhere with the exact help you needed, those opportunities that feel too aligned to be accidental. These aren't coincidences. This is the result of heaven ordering every spiritual force to prioritize your path after confirming your purity. Your steps are now guided with precision you couldn't orchestrate on your own. The third consequence is something you've likely already started noticing: the decline of your enemies. The ones who attacked you and seem to thrive are entering seasons of breakdown they can't explain. Their stability is cracking. Their peace is disappearing. Their relationships and plans are unraveling. And this isn't revenge, it's consequence. When Lucifer screamed, it wasn't just rage, it was a signal sent across the lower realms that you are off limits. Anyone who touched you before that verdict is now facing the fallout of having interfered with someone officially marked as a protected chosen. Now, you need to understand something about the timing of all of this, because once you see why your aura reached heaven when it did, everything about the last few years of your life will suddenly make sense. Your imprint wasn't brought to the celestial tribunal at random. It wasn't the result of luck, fate, or coincidence. It happened at a precise moment, chosen for a strategic purpose that explains the exact sequence of pain, confusion, attacks, and strange spiritual pressure you endured. In the higher realms, there's a protocol for when a soul's case must be reviewed, and the truth is simple: they don't evaluate everyone. The tribunal only intervenes when a soul's light becomes so intense that it draws attention from every side. When both heaven and the lower realms notice you at the same time, conflict emerges, and that conflict demands a divine verdict. Your light began intensifying 2 to 5 years ago. Not because you were living a flawless life, not because you achieved some massive public breakthrough, but because your actions, the quiet ones no one applauded, began accumulating spiritual luminosity. Your forgiveness when others didn't deserve it. Your kindness, even when you were exhausted. Your refusal to harden your heart despite being wounded repeatedly. All of that began shaping a radiance in you that couldn't be ignored. And when that radiance crossed a certain threshold, 2 forces reacted instantly. Heavenly watchers began tracking you closely, noticing that you carried qualities found only in souls who are destined for higher protection. And at the exact same time, dark forces escalated their attacks, trying to extinguish your light before it reached the point where divine protection would be officially established over your life. This is why the pain you experienced didn't feel random. This is why the betrayals hit harder than they should have. This is why the timing of your suffering always seemed unfair, almost targeted. It was targeted. None of those wounds were accidental. Every disappointment, every loss, every moment where you felt spiritually suffocated, those were strategic assaults launched by the adversary to break the very purity that heaven was preparing to evaluate. Lucifer understood that if your aura reached God before corruption took hold, his influence over your life would be permanently severed. So he attacked furiously, urgently, obsessively. The intensity of those attacks wasn't a sign of your weakness. It was a sign that your light was rising faster than he could suppress it. And here's the part that changes everything. Those brutal, unexplainable tests happened right before your spiritual imprint was taken. They were Lucifer's final attempts to distort your essence before your case reached heaven. But every attempt failed. You didn't collapse. You didn't turn bitter. You didn't lose your inner light. Even when you felt broken, your essence stayed aligned with goodness. When the moment came, when your aura was captured, what the tribunal saw wasn't fragile innocence. It was purity forged through fire, purity that survived intentional sabotage, purity that remained luminous despite being placed under calculated pressure. That is why the verdict in your favor was so overwhelming. God didn't just see potential. He saw endurance. He saw a soul that stayed true even when hit repeatedly. He saw strength hidden under wounds, and heaven responds differently to souls who remain pure after facing darkness. That kind of purity isn't simply protected. It's honored, it's elevated, it's vindicated, and it's classified as the type that darkness can no longer challenge without facing consequences. The moment your aura was captured in the spiritual realm wasn't random. It happened the morning after the most brutal test you've ever faced. That moment when you were exhausted to your core, when you were standing on the edge of breaking, when the temptation to harden your heart and let bitterness swallow you felt almost irresistible. Any ordinary person would have surrendered to that darkness. But you didn't. And the very next day, when you opened your eyes and your first instinct wasn't anger, revenge, or despair, but gratitude for simply being alive, heaven saw it. In that unguarded instant, when your face reflected resilience instead of resentment, your spiritual photo was taken. And that image revealed something no mask, no performance, no spiritual pose could ever imitate. It showed goodness that remained intact after nearly being shattered. It showed light that refused to dim even after being attacked with precision. It showed a soul that chose compassion when cruelty would have been justified. When that imprint reached heaven and God examined the expression on your face, the verdict didn't require debate. It was immediate, final, and irreversible. Your aura didn't just rise. It crossed realms and stood in the highest court, proving that your purity survived the fire. And from that verdict, everything in your life began shifting, spiritually, emotionally, and materially. Now, let me walk you through what's already changing as a direct result of the divine decision made about your aura. Because this wasn't some distant cosmic event, the effects are unfolding around you right now. The first transformation is your relationship with fear, that background anxiety that used to stalk you, that unsettling dread that something unseen was approaching, that eerie sense of being observed by hostile forces. You'll notice these sensations are dissolving, not because you're pretending the dark world doesn't exist, but because you now carry a verdict stamped with divine authority. You're no longer wandering unprotected. You're moving with a spiritual classification that even Lucifer cannot dispute after his scream of rage confirmed his defeat. The second transformation is your ability to perceive truth. You will begin sensing people's intentions with clarity you never had before. Masks will become transparent. Hidden agendas will feel obvious. You'll notice when someone is pretending to be kind, but carrying shadow in their heart. When your aura was accepted in heaven, your inner sight sharpened. It's the kind of discernment given only to souls who have proven their purity under pressure and earned the right to see through deception. The third transformation, and one you'll feel deeply, is how people react to your presence. Those who walk in darkness will feel uneasy around you, even hostile without knowing why. Your energy now carries the resonance of a divine verdict, and that frequency repels anything misaligned with the light. But on the other hand, people who crave authenticity will be magnetized toward you. Strangers will open their hearts. Individuals who never trust anyone will share their secrets with you. People will come to you for guidance they can't explain. Your aura now emits the unmistakable signature of a soul approved by heaven, and others respond instinctively to that authority. The fourth transformation involves your connection with abundance. All those strange financial blocks, opportunities that slipped away at the last moment, projects that died right before they were supposed to succeed. Those weren't failures. They were delays caused by spiritual interference. But now that your aura is under divine protection, those blockages are dissolving. Resources will begin flowing towards you in ways that feel tailored to your character. Opportunities where your integrity becomes your advantage. Environments where your purity is recognized as strength rather than exploited as weakness. Provision is being aligned with your purpose, not your struggle. The fifth transformation is your understanding of why you're here. That restlessness, that sense that you were meant for something bigger but couldn't articulate what it was, that internal pull towards significance without a clear direction. All of that is about to sharpen. Because when your aura was validated in heaven, your assignment was acknowledged as well. And that assignment isn't theatrical. It isn't about building temples or preaching loudly or becoming a messiah for attention. Your purpose is far more powerful than spectacle. You're here to be living proof that purity can survive corruption, that kindness can endure cruelty, that a soul aligned with light can walk through fire and come out brighter. You're here as evidence that goodness is not weakness. It's divine authority. Now I'm going to reveal why Lucifer's scream wasn't just noise, but a cosmic signal that explains why the next 90 days of your life are going to feel nothing like the years behind you. When he screamed, it wasn't a tantrum, it was a confession. A forced acknowledgement in front of the entire celestial tribunal that he failed at a mission he believed he would win easily. And in the spiritual order, that kind of admission isn't symbolic. It triggers consequences written into laws older than creation, laws even he cannot twist or escape. The primary law is simple, but devastating for him. When the accuser admits he has no valid accusation left, he forfeits all authority over the person he tried to destroy. Not for a season, not until he regroups, but forever. It's the spiritual equivalent of a prosecutor standing in a packed courtroom and admitting every piece of evidence he presented was fabricated. Once it's declared and logged, the case is sealed. It cannot be reopened, retried, or manipulated. Lucifer's scream was exactly that type of declaration, and it's now registered in eternal archives as proof that your purity is genuine. Your intentions remained clean under intense pressure, and you qualify for the rare category known as spiritually untouchable. And that classification already comes with specific privileges that are activating around you even now. The first privilege is immediate divine response. You don't pray into a void anymore. You don't wonder whether heaven noticed you. When you think, heaven hears. When your chest tightens with pain, heaven feels it instantly. When you need something, celestial resources start shifting before you can even articulate the request. There's no mediator filtering your voice. You have direct access to divine attention. The second privilege is immunity from any new coordinated assault. Lucifer can hate you privately all he wants, but he cannot gather forces, cannot form campaigns, cannot design elaborate spiritual traps to break you. If he tries, it won't be interpreted as an attack on you. It'll be interpreted as an attack on the verdict itself. And that carries consequences he cannot afford because challenging a divine ruling is the fastest route to annihilation. The third privilege is scheduled vindication. People who misread you, who sided with lies, who treated you as disposable, they're going to see the truth in ways they can't deny or distort. Not because you want payback, but because the verdict includes restoration as part of the protection you were granted. Your name, your dignity, your character, everything that was smeared will be returned to you publicly. The fourth privilege is clarity of mission. The fog around your purpose is evaporating. You won't wander in uncertainty. You won't feel like you're guessing anymore. Your role in this era of planetary transition will become clear, and you'll understand the exact gifts that make you irreplaceable. You'll also see how to use them without compromising your light. without draining yourself, and without crossing into ego or corruption. And the fifth privilege, the most significant and the most feared in the spiritual realm, is the manifestation of what ancient writings call the visible seal. Not visible to the human eye, but unmistakable to any spiritual entity that comes near you. A luminous command stamped into your aura that says, "This one was examined and approved by God. His essence remained pure under fire. Any attempt to harm him is an act of war against heaven." That seal is why you'll see dangerous situations dissolve before reaching you, why people with hidden, malicious intent suddenly pull away or lose interest, why attacks that should have caused ruin collapse in midair. The seal has already begun to work. It shields you without requiring any ritual, any prayer, any conscious activation. It simply functions because the moment Lucifer screamed, the seal was assigned to you. But with these privileges comes a responsibility you cannot ignore. Now that heaven approved your photo, now that the verdict stamped you as an officially protected chosen one, you can't move through life blindly anymore. Your primary duty is to protect the purity that your photo revealed, not perfection. Purity. There's a difference. When you slip, acknowledge it instead of inventing excuses. When you hurt someone, speak the truth instead of defending your ego. When you fall, rise without dragging guilt like a chain. The purity God recognized in your photo wasn't the absence of flaws, it was the absence of deception. It was the courage to be honest about who you are, including the parts you're still working on. That honesty is what heaven approved, and that honesty is what you must guard. Because if you start performing holiness instead of living authenticity, if you replace truth with spiritual theatrics, the seal can be challenged. Not easily. God is patient with the human condition. But if you deliberately corrupt the very purity that earned your protection, if you betray the goodness that was proven under fire, then the verdict can be reviewed. Your second responsibility is to be a conscious beacon. Every time you choose kindness when cruelty would be justified, someone is learning from you. Every time you forgive when revenge would feel natural, you teach strength. Every time you give without calculating returns, you restore someone's faith in humanity. You don't need theatrics. You need consistency. You don't need to become a hero. You need to remain genuine. Your quiet constancy will shift more lives than any loud display ever could. Your third responsibility is to recognize and connect with the other 299 chosen whose photos were approved. When you meet them, don't let hesitation steal the moment. Build those connections intentionally. When confirmed purity unites, its power doesn't add up, it multiplies. Chosen one, now you understand what happened when your image reached the throne. It wasn't a poetic scene in some symbolic realm. It was a real evaluation where your essence was placed under divine scrutiny and passed every test. Lucifer attempted to accuse you, but the truth in your photo was so undeniable that he screamed in rage for all realms to hear. Your image showed goodness that fought through fire, purity that refused to collapse, light that burned brighter after surviving darkness. That single moment was enough for God to classify you as selected, shielded, and untouchable. Enough for Lucifer to admit defeat, and enough for your life to begin shifting in ways you've only started to witness. For those who want to go deeper into understanding how to function consciously with these privileges, there's material available that costs less than a simple meal and includes a full audiobook and a 5-minute meditation guide. If you feel ready to strengthen the divine protection awakened by your approved photo, the link is in the description and pinned comment. If you know your image was placed before God and Lucifer's rage confirmed your purity, write 777 in the comments to amplify the frequency of the approved chosen. Subscribe and activate notifications so you don't miss the revelations that explain how your new classification unlocks privileges beyond normal comprehension. Share this message with someone whose purity might already be under celestial review without their awareness. Chosen recognize chosen, and that recognition is needed before the planetary transformation reaches its climax. And before you go, tap the video on your screen to understand how your verdict connects you with the unfolding network of chosen. who are being revealed to each other for conscious collaboration. Together, our light is impossible to stop.